माउंट एवरेस्ट जितना खूबसूरत दिखता है और जितना एडवेंचरस है, उससे क्या ज़्यादा खतरनाक भी है।
Rising 8,148.86 meters above sea level, perched between Nepal and Tibet, Everest towers over everything humans have ever built or broken. Millions admire it from afar. Thousands try to stand on its summit, but only a few truly understand what waits up there. Because behind the stunning photos, behind the triumph, the flags, the glory, Everest hides two secrets that almost no tourist brochure mentions. It is the highest garbage dump on Earth and the highest graveyard on the planet. How did the world's most iconic mountain become a place of both human achievement and human abandonment? To answer that, we need to rewind to the first footsteps that began this complicated relationship. When it comes to the earliest attempts on Everest, the truth is, we simply don't know. There are no ancient records, no legends of climbers returning from the summit, and no reliable accounts from the early 1900s suggesting that anyone made it up and lived to tell the story. For centuries, Everest was a distant white pyramid, admired, feared, but untouched. That changed in 1953, when the first confirmed ascent was finally recorded. And from that moment on, the mountain's reputation transformed almost overnight. What had once been a blank spot on the map became the proving ground for mountaineers. Every year after, more climbers arrived, some seasoned, some reckless, and others simply chasing a personal dream, all drawn by the magnetic pull of the world's highest peak. But the real shift came in the 1990s, when Everest quietly entered its commercial era. Guided expeditions, fixed routes, and package-style climbing turned a once elite endeavor into something far more accessible. And accessibility meant numbers. Suddenly, the slopes were crowded. Teams from around the world lined up at base camp. And for Nepal, whose southern route is easier to approach than China's Tibetan side, this boom became a financial lifeline. Everest wasn't just a mountain anymore, it was an industry. With that came a new hierarchy on the slopes. At the top, elite climbers with decades of experience. Below them, enthusiastic but inexperienced clients who often needed far more support than they realized. And in between, carrying the real weight, literally and figuratively, were the Sherpa guides, the backbone of every successful ascent. To regulate the chaos, Nepal introduced mandatory climbing permits, each one carrying a hefty fee. Even so, demand only grew, and Everest's identity continued to evolve. And that evolution would soon expose a darker side of this legendary peak, one that has nothing to do with glory and everything to do with what climbers leave behind. For most people who dream of climbing Everest, the image in their mind is pure. Glittering snowfields, untouched slopes, a pristine summit floating above the clouds. But the reality is far less romantic. For decades now, every climbing season has left behind a trail of debris, shredded tents, reflective tarps, frayed ropes, empty oxygen canisters, broken gear, and yes, even human waste. Hundreds of climbers passing through the same narrow routes create a supply chain of trash that the mountain simply cannot absorb. For years, much of this waste stayed hidden. Temperatures were so low, snowfall so heavy, that the debris was locked inside thick layers of ice. But with global temperatures rising and the Himalayan glaciers melting faster than ever, that frozen landfill has begun to thaw. What had been buried for decades is now surfacing, scattered across ridges, caught in crevasses, or washed downslope by meltwater. The world's highest peak, in a bitter twist, is revealing just how much we've left behind. Faced with growing criticism, Nepal introduced a straightforward but ambitious policy. Each climbing team must place a 4,000 deposit, refundable only if every member carries down at least 8 kilograms of trash. And on paper, it sounds like a reasonable solution. In practice, it helps, but only to a point. Cleanup efforts now remove an estimated 25 tons of equipment waste and 15 tons of human waste from the mountain every year. The numbers are impressive, almost heroic. But here's the issue. 4,000 means very little to someone already spending 25,000 to more than 100,000 for a full expedition. For many climbers, losing the deposit is easier than hauling several kilograms of garbage in the death zone, where every step feels like a negotiation with survival itself. And so, despite the rule, plenty of people simply forfeit the cost and leave the waste where it lies. Then, there's the rise of budget expeditions. As cheaper tours flood the market, more inexperienced climbers enter the route, often without proper training and often on teams that cut corners just to stay competitive. Less preparation, fewer support staff, minimal waste management, it all adds up. And the mountain pays the price. The impact doesn't stop at base camp. As the ice melts, contaminated water runs off Everest and into the rivers that millions rely on downstream. What begins as a discarded canister at 8,000 meters can eventually affect entire communities. And if trash is one kind of footprint humans leave on Everest, the next one is far more haunting and far more permanent. If Everest's trash problem is unsettling, its death toll is even more sobering. More than 7 dozen climbers have reached the summit since the first successful ascent in 1953. But alongside those triumphs lies a far darker number. Over 300 climbers have died on its slopes, and most of them still remain there, frozen in place, preserved by the cold, silent markers on a mountain that remembers everyone who tried and failed. What's striking is that the majority of successful ascents happened after the year 2000, when commercial expeditions made reaching the top more feasible. Yet even with better gear, better logistics, and better forecasting, the death toll continues to rise. Everest may be more accessible, but it has not become safer. Why do so many perish? The simplest answer lies above 8,000 meters in the infamous death zone, a place where the air is so thin that the human body begins to shut down the moment it enters. Oxygen levels drop to 1/3 of what we breathe at sea level. Muscles weaken, vision blurs, the brain slows. Every minute you spend there, you are losing something you won't get back. And the environment doesn't help. Temperatures plunge far below freezing. Winds can roar without warning. A calm morning can turn into a whiteout in minutes. Climbers face avalanches, hidden crevasses, collapsing ice shelves, and their own exhaustion. One misplaced step, one rope clipped incorrectly, one moment of hesitating at the wrong time, and the mountain makes its decision. But perhaps the most dangerous threat isn't the cold or the storms. It's hypoxia, the slow starvation of oxygen that fogs the brain and erodes judgment. Many fatalities occur not because climbers are inexperienced, but because they become disoriented, confused, or overly confident after hours at extreme altitude. In that state, the wrong choice doesn't take long to become fatal. The deadliest example remains the climbing season of 1996, when a sudden storm hammered summit teams. Over the entire season, 12 people died trying to reach the summit, including 2 of the world's most respected guides, Rob Hall and Scott Fisher. Their loss stunned the mountaineering community and exposed how vulnerable even the most elite climbers can be when Everest decides to turn. And for some, the story didn't end there. Their bodies, caught in the ice and snow, became part of the route itself, leading us directly to one of the most haunting chapters in Everest's history. Among the hundreds who never made it home from Everest, a few names and a few bodies have become part of the mountain's mythology. Not because their stories are more tragic than the rest, but because the circumstances surrounding their final moments have lingered in the public imagination for decades. These individuals are reminders that Everest does not discriminate. Experience, fame, preparation, none of it guarantees a safe return. 1. George Mallory, the pioneer lost in the clouds. Long before commercial expeditions, long before oxygen systems were reliable or routes were thoroughly mapped, a British climber named George Mallory set his sights on the summit. He joined the major British expeditions of 1922 and 1924, back when Everest was still a near-total mystery. These early teams were essentially stepping into the unknown. No accurate weather predictions, no fixed ropes, no modern survival gear. Just ambition, wool clothing, and a belief that humans could push upward no matter what waited above the clouds. In 1924, Mallory and his climbing partner Andrew Sandy Irvine made a bold final summit attempt. The last known sighting of the pair came from a team member who reported seeing them high on the northeast ridge, astonishingly close to the summit. Some estimated they might have been within 100 meters of reaching the top, and then they vanished into the mist. For decades, the question echoed, did Mallory reach the summit before he died? If he had, he would have been the first human to stand on the roof of the world, nearly 30 years before the confirmed 1953 ascent. But without evidence, it remained one of mountaineering's greatest mysteries. That mystery shifted in 1999, when an expedition searching for clues stumbled upon Mallory's body. He had been lying there for 75 years, preserved almost entirely by the cold. The discovery answered some questions, but not the biggest one. Did he make it? No camera was found, no summit proof. To this day, Mallory's final steps remain an enigma, and his frozen remains became a symbol of Everest's unforgiving nature. 2. Green boots, the most recognizable body on the mountain. If Mallory represents the early age of exploration, the figure known as Green Boots represents the darker reality of modern Everest. The name doesn't belong to a famous explorer, but to an Indian climber, widely believed to be Tsewang Paljor, a police officer with the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, who died in the catastrophic 1996 season. He and his team were climbing from the north side when a storm struck. Separated from his companions, running out of oxygen, and exhausted beyond recovery, he took shelter in a small limestone alcove roughly 300 meters below the summit. It was there that he died, and there that he stayed. For decades afterward, every climber ascending the north route passed by the same haunting sight, a body curled in a cave wearing bright green boots that never decayed. Over time, Green Boots became a landmark, a waypoint, a grim reminder that the final stretch to the summit has taken many lives. His presence also underscores an often overlooked reality. Most bodies on Everest are identifiable. Climbers carry passports, expedition notes, or metal ID tags inside their clothing. And despite harsh conditions, the cold preserves these personal items astonishingly well. For rescuers and for families, this means the mystery is rarely about who the victim is. It's about why they can't be brought home. Mallory's legacy, Green Boots' lonely cave, and all the others who lie scattered along the ridges form a silent catalog of Everest's past. Each body marks a decision, a risk, a moment when the mountain proves stronger than human will. And understanding why they remain there, untouched, unmoved, leads us to the next, even more difficult question. When people first hear that more than 300 bodies remain on Everest, their instinctive question is almost always the same. Why not bring them down? But the reality is far harsher than the question suggests. Up there, above the clouds and deep into the death zone, even carrying a few kilograms of trash is a struggle. Every step is slow. Every breath feels borrowed. Now imagine adding a 70 to 80 kilogram body to that burden, a dead weight that doesn't help, doesn't balance, and doesn't move with you. Suddenly, what seems like a moral duty becomes a near-suicidal mission. And it has been suicidal before. In 1984, two highly skilled Nepalese climbers attempted to retrieve a body from high altitude. They never made it back. Their deaths were a brutal reminder. Rescuers are just as vulnerable as the climbers they're trying to save. On Everest, heroism can cost you everything. Then there's the cost, not emotional, but financial. Retrieving a single body can run up to $70,000 depending on the altitude, weather conditions, and the number of Sherpas required. Even with money, success isn't guaranteed. People often suggest the simple solution: use helicopters. But at Everest's extreme elevation, that idea collapses almost instantly. The air at 8,000 meters is so thin that helicopter rotors can't generate reliable lift. Engines struggle. Controls become unstable. Even the world's best high-altitude aviation teams know there's a hard limit, and Everest sits above it. And even if a helicopter could hover long enough to attempt a rescue, the downwash from its blades could trigger catastrophic avalanches, endangering everyone on the mountain. So the brutal truth is this: retrieving the dead often puts the living at greater risk. And that's why so many remain where they fell. Climbers who began as hopeful adventurers become, over time, fixed points on the landscape, frozen markers along the route, guiding others up the same slopes that claimed them. They are not forgotten, but they are unmoved. Everest will always captivate us, that perfect white pyramid rising above the world. But behind the postcards and the glory is a truth we can't ignore. This mountain is both a masterpiece and a mirror, a place where human dreams shine and where human mistakes linger, frozen in time. More than 300 climbers still rest on its slopes, and tons of waste continue to surface as the ice retreats. Everest doesn't just test endurance, it reveals who we are as a species. So here's the question I want to leave with you. Should Everest remain a summit open to anyone who can pay the price, or should the world rethink how we treat this mountain? Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe for more stories like this every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.